A jury originally awarded the family of the dead burglar $150,000. What? Hello everybody and welcome back to youtube.com/NaveRegNide. There you go, figured I'd throw you in the old outro as an intro, a little bit of nostalgia. Now Americans sure do love suing people. It's actually just part of our culture. At least that's what the media would have you believe, right? Well, partially so. I feel like if you really want to understand why we as Americans sue so often compared to other countries, you've got to look a bit into the laws regarding lawsuits. You see, in most European countries, if you try and sue someone and you lose, not only do you have to pay your own legal fees from that entire legal battle, you also have to pay the legal fees of the person you were trying to sue. So basically, because of that system, you're not going to be just throwing lawsuits out willy-nilly because you can spend it. You've got to pay for yourself and for the other person. It basically solves that problem right away. I honestly don't know why a system like this hasn't been put in place in the US, but because it hasn't, well, today's video exists. Like, the actual dream in America is to be hit by a car and have it cause non-permanent damage, because when they're done rolling you over, you'll be rolling in dough, okay? It's kind of like how in Britain, there's this weird joke about how people kind of hope while they're taking an exam that someone dies, so that way everyone passes. It's a bit of a dark humor thing, but that's basically how it is in the States. We're like, I hope I get hit by a car so I can finally increase my standard of life, standard of living. Now, as a quick example of the difference in culture between the US and the UK when it comes to lawsuits, a couple years ago, my friend Connie was hit by a car outside of our house. I'm freaking out. The woman runs her over, gets out of the car, starts screaming at her saying, "Why did you cross the road?" Which she had every legal right to do. The woman clearly wasn't watching where she was driving. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, are you okay? She finds out she's okay. And I'm like, guess what? Hey, at least you're gonna be rich now, okay? You get hit by a car, you're gonna sue. She's like, Evan, who am I gonna sue? I was like, the woman that hit you. She's like, what if she doesn't have any money? I went, sue the building complex we're in. They didn't put enough signs around. The council, the borough. You could sue anyone. The car manufacturer that should have had better brick. You could literally sue anyone. Okay, that's the point. You got to get the money to pay for your. Oh, she didn't really have any medical fees because the NHS exists. So, I mean, that kind of just stops it right there. The original purpose of suing someone when you hit by a car is to pay for those medical fees. Or at least they have insurance to cover that. But in a country where you have nationalized healthcare, well, that kind of solves that problem right away. But, I mean, she did still get hit by a car. It's a lot of pain and suffering. I still feel like a lawsuit could have happened there. But she had no reason to. She was like, I survived, I'm fine. So the thing is, because of the system that's currently in place, which means that you can sue anyone you want in the US, it means that the land of the free doesn't really have as many freedoms as somewhere, for instance, like the Netherlands, where its people can just freely swim in a city river, YOLO. If you dive and it's a bit shallow and you die, it kind of makes sense that you shouldn't have done that. You know, there's a bit of a common sense rule in a lot of countries. However, in the US, oh man, why was this place even allowed for me to swim? Okay, I shouldn't have been able to do that. Are you kidding me? That's it. Time to sue the entire country. It's annoying because I just wish this wasn't the case, but that is how it is. If you get drunk, go swimming, and then end up drowning in a river, that shouldn't be the fault of the river or the people. You're the stupid person. Why is it then that we have to ban swimming in the river because of you? Doesn't make sense. However, there is a lawsuit today we're going to be talking about that's incredibly similar to that. So, here we go. Here's some of my favorite weird lawsuits that the US has gone through in the last couple decades. Let's go. Our first case we're looking at today comes from a woman from Manhattan who was so incredibly startled by an advert on the underground, on the old metro, on the old subway, sorry, British coming in there, that she tripped, sprained her ankle, and is suing the company that put the advert out there. They're responsible. At least that's what she'd like you to believe. It's a bit of a creepy image, sure, I'd agree. Netflix's Dexter looks like he's dead in some type of plastic body bag, suffocated on the stairs. Scary enough to trip and fall and break your... Probably not. Are you 10? She's quoted as saying, "The photograph itself scared me. It's the last thing she saw before she screamed and fell, fracturing her right ankle. She said it was the eyes." You guys click away from the video yet? Now, luckily, the judge tossed this lawsuit out, but the woman has appealed, and she said, "You wouldn't put pornography on a billboard on a major highway. It's a distraction. It's not frivolous if it happened to you." It's quite a reach, right? Her arm must be gonna be fractured soon from that big reach, because come on. But it's one of those cases where I guess you can't blame them for trying. If you're not gonna get charged, she broke her ankle. I don't know how much that costs to fix in the States. Let's look it up. Without health insurance, diagnosis and surgical treatment of a broken ankle typically costs just under $11,000. Makes sense. If I had to pay $11,000 for a trip down a stairwell, I'm blaming the ad. Come on. Yikes. Now, if you've got yourself a 4th grade science education at the bare minimum, you probably wouldn't have gone forward with this next lawsuit. A California man filed a proposed class action lawsuit alleging that customers of Starbucks ordering cold beverages received less liquid than advertised, as ice could take up as much space as 10 fluid ounces. So, in these Starbucks cups, which are transparent, you can see through them, you see all the ice, you're like, there's too much ice in my iced beverage. I can understand if it wasn't an iced beverage, but come on. It's just, how does this stuff exist? How do you get that far in the lawsuit? You just with your friends smoking or something, you're like, oh man, you know what? There's so much ice in this iced beverage. I wish it was more liquid. Sure, it makes sense. Ice is the least expensive part of the product, but you can't just sue the company. Come. Since the lawsuit was filed, Starbucks has insisted that ice is an essential component of any ice beverage. Duh. Come on. Now, this next one's one of my favorites for a couple reasons. First of all, being that it is a New Jersey man, which makes sense as to why he's doing this lawsuit. Basically, this is the one where the guy got a foot long from Subway and was like, this isn't a foot. It's 11 inches. That's false advertising. I am 100% on this guy's side, okay? I know we've been having some funny ones so far, but this man is correct. 1, if you're going to Subway in New Jersey, you're already getting robbed. They have Wawas there, okay? What are you doing? 2, it's a foot long. It's gotta be a foot long. For you Brits or Europeans out there, a foot is 12 inches or roughly 30 centimeters. So imagine getting a 27 centimeter hoagie. Unacceptable. I paid for 30, okay? I hate it when I get an inch less than what I'm promised. Now, I'm pretty sure the company in this case basically was like, no one expects it to be a foot long. It's just foot long is the name of it. It's a foot long. Doesn't mean it's a foot long. It's just called a foot long. Nope. Now, sadly, in this case, justice did not win, okay? It was thrown out in court because it turns out the only people that were profiting off of this lawsuit were the lawyers involved in the litigation, so it was tossed out. Justice was not served. 100% of the cut was basically going to the lawyers. How's that for cold cuts? Now, so far, most of these lawsuits have been ones in which they have been thrown out for being silly or frivolous, and so everyone just went about their way. However, the next one, surprisingly quite different. So customers were disappointed that Red Bull did not energize them. Of course, if you're unaware, Red Bull, the energy drink that quote unquote gives you wings, some customers were upset they did not quite feel as if it had given them wings. Now, they used this in court and effectively got Red Bull to settle out of court for $640,000. Didn't give them enough energy, they said. That's amazing. That's phenomenal. Wow. Now, this next one is one that I just don't think could exist outside the States. Correct me if I'm wrong. We have a man who held a Kansas couple hostage in their home while fleeing from authorities is suing them, claiming they broke an oral contract made when he promised them money in exchange for hiding him from the police. Come on. Come on now. Now, this guy that held them hostage said, I, the defendant, asked them to hide me because I feared for my life. I offered them an unspecified amount of money, which they agreed upon, therefore forging a legally binding oral contract. He wants $235,000 in part to pay for his hospital bills that resulted from him being shot by the police when they arrested him. Oh my God. How? How? Because that's the way the system works. The system is in place for this type of thing. I just don't understand how stuff like this hasn't been fixed. You know, we all laugh about these types of things, and then it just goes on. It just stays like this forever. Neighbors have said the couples fed him snacks and watched movies with him until he fell asleep, and they were able to escape their own home. Luckily, in this case, the judge immediately dismissed it as ridiculous. But why? Why is this even allowed? Why? Now, this is a bit dark, but I remember learning as a kid, genuinely, that if someone invades my property, I need to shoot and kill them while still on my property, because if they bleed out, like on the pavement, on the sidewalk outside of my house, which is government owned, well, then I've just murdered the man off my property. You know, that's a whole different story. You gotta make sure you finish the job. That's scary. Now, in this case, this is why this type of thing happens, okay? In 1997, an Illinois man broke into a bar. Now, the owner of this bar had had a couple break-ins in the past, and so he had set up loads of traps around his window to deter potential burglars. Now, the burglar was under the influence of both drugs and alcohol, must have missed the warning signs all over the windows, so he set off the trap as he entered the window, electrocuting himself. The police refused to file murder charges. However, the family of the dead burglar saw it differently and filed a civil suit against the bar owner. You're not going to like how this ends up. A jury originally awarded the family of the dead burglar $150,000. Later, it was reduced to $75,000 when it was decided that the burglar should at least share half of the blame. Half of $150,000? What? So a man under the influence of drugs and alcohol tries breaking in to your place, which you have signage all over the place saying, "Do not try and break in. I have traps. You will die." He dies. You lose the lawsuit. How does that make sense? Who are these jury members? This one starts pretty standard. In 2003, a man sued his former employer and sought $5 million plus $166,000 in back pay for sexual and disability discrimination. All right, what was the case then? What happened here? In fact, he was so stressed by this discrimination that he experienced at the workplace that he robbed a convenience store with a shotgun. We've all been there. You know when you're really stressed about your job and then you're like, "Oh, I'm just so stressed." Come on, what is this? Luckily, the jury felt his pain and awarded him the money he was seeking. Luckily. That's it. Guys, I was just so How? What jury did this? Luckily, the decision was reversed. Thank God. Unfortunately, the $303,000 he was still awarded isn't doing him much good during the 10 years he's serving for armed robbery. Thank God. But also, how? When he gets out of prison for 10 years for armed robbery, he gets $300,000? He basically just robbed way more than he got from that convenience store. No Wawa's gonna have more than like $1,000, mate. You just made $300,000 for 10 years in prison. Welcome to America. Now this next one is from a man who we as Americans all immediately recognize. Okay, they're basically a superhero in the States. In fact, pretty sure this person is the cause of the coronavirus situation that's currently happening. Florida man, okay? In 1996, a Florida physical therapist sued his local nudie bar, claiming whiplash from a lap dancer's large breasts. He suffered physical harm and mental anguish from the breasts. We've all been there, which he claimed felt like cement blocks hitting him. He sought justice in the amount of $15,000, which was denied. 'Tis a pity to think you could have just spent that $15,000 getting more whiplash from more big titties. So in conclusion, we do love a good lawsuit in the States. We really should have a law in place that prevents frivolous lawsuits. But it doesn't look like that's happening on the horizon at all. There's so many other horrible things happening. That's probably the least of everyone's worries. But thanks for watching. I make new videos every single Sunday. If you didn't know, you can subscribe, join the family. You don't have to. It's fine. We're all friends here. But anyway, I'll see you guys next Sunday. Thanks for watching. See you then. Goodbye.